I was gonna make this a simple compilation to music, but it turns out I can't count beats properly, so I'm gonna explain the process of this illustration instead. So this illustration I started and finished in May 2022 for the Bryce co-illustration class. I talk about this course and go over the homework that I did for it in my previous video, so check out that video in the description or in the corners up above. So the first step here was thumbnails, and these are pretty big thumbnails, but I was preparing for what would be a very complex illustration with a lot of stuff in it. So the thumbnails had to be just as complex. You'll also notice that there are moments in this video where my pen isn't moving at all. Those are moments where I'm just thinking about what I'm gonna draw before I draw it. After that, I did some watercoloring to try to figure out exactly which type of red, yellow, and blue that I wanted to use to create the mood that I wanted. And then after all this work, I didn't go with any of these 4 thumbnails. I went with a 5th idea that you'll see later in the video. So then after that, I did the underdrawing. Doing an underdrawing in watercolor, which means it cannot be erased, so I had to be intentional in the underdrawing as well. After that, it was the first and final lines. This video is pretty misleading because I reduced it down to 4.5 minutes, but this was like 14 to 20 hours of work over the span of a week. And the line art in particular, I had to go really slow and intentional, and there were many times where I just kind of like froze up because I was afraid of making mistakes, and that's just the way it is, and I had to fight through that. After that, it was watercolors. So in the CMYK method, I started with red because I knew I wanted to have like an overall very warm, sunny afternoon tone to it. So I thought starting with red would help me accomplish that. Yeah, this is my apartment in Hirosaki, Aomori, Japan, by the way. May in northern Japan is still pretty cold, so I was wearing that little fleece pajamas. Next was yellows. So anything that I knew would be like some shade of green, or anything that I really wanted to be yellow at the end, I just did it here in the stage. I had colored everyone's faces like a light red, so then I put yellow to create a more orange tone and to make a more realistic skin tone. The final shade was blue, so anything like shadows would be blue. All of the vegetation above the cafe windows I knew would be green, so I put a shade of blue first, and then I overlaid it with yellow, and that created the green. And then after the initial shades, the initial layers of red, yellow, blue, I just went back and forth between the 3 colors and just pushed and pulled in areas that I thought needed more color or more definition. I guess I thought the lighting, so at the time of filming, I thought the lighting was pretty good, but it's a little too washed out. And then the final touches, I used this white ink, created the glare on the windows, white spots in the vegetation. So yeah, that's the end of this illustration. It looks way more vivid now. I literally recorded this footage a few hours ago. So it's super bright and vivid in like new sunlight. But yeah.